Alright, let's dive into what Chancellor Rachel Reeves has introduced in what she's calling one of the most ambitious pension reforms in recent decades. Her goal? To spur economic growth by merging the 86 UK council pension schemes into just a few pension megafunds. Yeah, this is meant to encourage billions of pounds in new investments across the UK, targeting areas like energy infrastructure, tech startups, and public services. So why does this matter, and what does it mean for the average person? Well, let's break it down. Reeves argues that current public sector pension funds are simply too small. Right. She says they're just not large enough to generate the kind of returns that could make a real impact for British savers. In other words, smaller funds are limited in their capacity to bring in the big bucks. By pooling these funds together, Reeves believes they could reach the scale needed to attract substantial investment and potentially offer higher returns. But here's the thing, not everyone is convinced. Some critics feel these changes could introduce certain risks, particularly to the funds meant to secure people's futures. Now, let's talk about the nitty-gritty of how this affects you, especially if you're part of one of these pension schemes. Okay, so for those in local government schemes, the good news is that there won't be any change in how much they get in retirement. The defined benefit pensions, which are based on your salary and how long you've worked, will stay the same. That's a relief for many, right? But what about private sector workers? Most of them are in schemes where they make monthly contributions into a savings pot, known as defined contribution pensions. Their final payout depends on the pot size when they retire. Now, the government is thinking about introducing a minimum size requirement for these defined contribution schemes. The idea here is that larger funds are more efficient to manage, which could mean higher returns. Essentially, larger funds have more muscle to make bigger, potentially more profitable investments. Okay, so Reeves is looking at models from countries like Canada and Australia where they've pooled local government pensions into just a few large funds. This approach has enabled those countries to make significant global investments. She even mentioned that Canada and Australia probably have some of the best pension funds globally. Why? Because those funds are big and can invest across a range of opportunities worldwide. So Reeves wants to apply this mega fund model to the UK, potentially giving British pensions the same kind of reach and efficiency. This proposal is actually part of Reeves's broader strategy to stimulate growth. Yeah, it's no secret that UK businesses have voiced concerns about the increased employer national insurance contributions announced in the budget. She's admitted that while those hikes were necessary to maintain state finances and fund public services, she understands the criticism. This pension reform could be a way to balance things out by channeling funds into the economy. Under the new plan, the government aims to merge the 86 council pension funds, which currently include PS 354 billion in assets, into larger megafunds managed by fund managers rather than local officials. That's a major shift, right? But here's the catch. These new funds won't be obligated to invest solely in UK projects or infrastructure. A spokesperson for the Prime Minister clarified that the government is not mandating specific investments. This is more about building scale in pension funds so they have the capability to make larger, more impactful investments. Additionally, the government is considering setting a minimum size for private sector defined contribution schemes, which currently hold around P700 billion in assets. By encouraging the consolidation of these funds, the government hopes to unlock an additional P70 billion in investments within the UK. Reeves explained that British pension funds are too small to make the kinds of high-return investments that both benefit savers and support economic growth. There's also a real-world example of how this could play out. Ian McGill, the CEO of UK biotech firm Quell Therapeutics, mentioned that this reform could be a game-changer for firms like his. Biotech companies often need access to significant funds to grow, and right now a lot of that capital is tied up in the US. Without access to those funds in the UK, many companies have had to consider relocating to the US. If these changes give UK businesses better access to domestic capital, it could help them expand and stay local. Now, one of the arguments in favour of these changes is cutting down costs. The UK pension fund market is currently very fragmented. Running all these separate schemes costs a lot in administration, governance and management fees. By consolidating funds, larger schemes can not only handle bigger investments, but also gain bargaining power. This means they can negotiate lower fees and potentially hire investment experts directly, rather than relying on outside fund managers. Tracy Blackwell, CEO of Pension Insurance Corporation, pointed out that larger funds with internal expertise could tap into a wider range of investment options than smaller funds currently can. On the other hand, critics are wary about the possible downsides. While larger funds can indeed access bigger opportunities, they could also take on bigger risks. For instance, Canada's Public Sector Pension Investment Board recently bought a company that owns Aberdeen, Glasgow, and Southampton airports in a deal worth over $0.5 billion. That's a substantial investment, but high-stakes investments like these can come with high risks, as seen in Thames Water, where the Ontario Municipal Employees Retirement System is a major investor facing serious challenges. Some, like Gervais Williams, head of equities at Premier Miton, think this push toward megafunds could be a mistake. He argues that these megafunds might focus more on mega companies, which could mean smaller companies get overlooked. This could shift the investment focus away from supporting small and medium-sized enterprises, which are crucial to the UK's economy. Another concern is whether merging funds to encourage domestic investment could compromise savers' returns. Tom Selby from investment platform AJ Bell cautions that linking pension investments to a government goal of boosting the UK economy could mean risks are placed on savers' money. He emphasised that pension trustees should prioritise returns for their members rather than nationwide growth goals. Currently, UK pension funds often invest globally, seeking the best returns wherever they may be, not just within the UK. There's also some skepticism about whether there are enough reliable, large-scale UK projects to absorb this new capital. John Greer, head of retirement policy at Quilter, noted that big funds need solid, reliable projects to ensure returns. The concern is that if there aren't enough suitable opportunities, particularly in infrastructure, then the funds might struggle to deliver the returns needed for retirees. While Shadow Chancellor Jeremy Stride of the Conservatives is cautious, saying they'll be looking closely at the specifics of Reeves' proposals, former Chancellor Jeremy Hunt has expressed support. He sees a lot to like in the plans, noting that Reeves' approach is similar to his own reform proposals from the previous year's Mansion House address. So, what's the bottom line? Reeves' proposed pension reforms aim to shake things up in a big way, with the goal of consolidating the UK's fragmented pension schemes into fewer, larger funds. These mega funds could have the potential to invest in larger projects, cut costs, and increase returns for pension savers. But the approach isn't without controversy. There are valid concerns about risks, whether the shift to mega funds will neglect smaller businesses, and whether there are enough worthwhile UK investments to fulfill this vision. Ultimately, this reform is part of Reeves' larger vision for economic growth. Will it pay off? Only time will tell. For now, the goal is to make UK pension funds a more powerful force in the global investment landscape, hoping to drive both savings growth and economic vitality here at home.